Hi, and welcome to NatChat. I am your host, Hayley Knott, Product Marketing Manager at Natilik, and today we are going to be going under the hood with Rapid7 all around detection and response security and debunking some of the new security marketing terms out there. Today I am joined by Rob Eldridge and Graham McMillan. Good afternoon, gentlemen, and welcome to NatChat.
Good afternoon, Hayley. Thank you very much for having me on NatChat. Really excited for the podcast that we're doing.
Yeah. And before we kick off today's session, do you want to start by introducing yourself to the audience today? Rob, do you want to go first?
Yeah, of course. No, thank you, Hayley, for that. So I'm Rob Eldridge, Security Solution Architect here for Natilik for 4 years now, I believe. But I've been working in IT for around 20 years now. I always say my job title sounds fancy, but essentially it means that I listen to my customers' pain points and challenges and then try and design the security solutions that I think will add some kind of tangible benefit to them, essentially.
Brilliant, thank you. And Graham?
Yeah, so I'm very similar to Rob Eldridge, except I'm one of the senior sales engineers for Rapid7. So kind of a similar functionality in that I'm bringing that technical awareness of, well, what is a customer trying to achieve? What are their business objectives? And how can we align a solution towards meeting that? And kind of engineering the correct approach to get them to meet those business objectives.
Brilliant, thank you. And we all know that Natilik, we've been a partner of you guys at Rapid7 now for a number of years. But it might be interesting if you just give us a little bit of a context into who Rapid7 are, where you sit in the market, just for some of the viewers if they haven't heard of you already.
Sure thing. So, I mean, on paper, who are Rapid7? We're founded in the year 2000. We've got approximately year 2000, and we've got approximately 2,000 employees, and we've got offices and SOC across the United States, Europe, Asia, and Oceania. I think one of the really neat differentiators, and I can go into all kinds of things. We're a publicly listed company and all kinds of stuff. One of the things that is really neat about Rapid7, and it's one of our directors kind of coined it, and I'll just grab it because that's a great way of describing us, is we're effectively a research organization, and that comes back to our core on we're going out there, we're listening in what are the different threat feeds, what are the different indicators of vulnerabilities are coming to light. And there's a huge amount of projects that we're running. We're one of those crazy companies that scans out the internet on a regular basis, and I mean the whole IPv4 internet. We've got honeypots, I think over 300 global honeypots distributed. And we're really ingesting a huge amount of threat feeds. We're part of the Cyber Threat Alliance. We effectively manage the Metasploit community, which is 2,000, 200,000 actually, plus ethical hackers, and it really is grabbing that threat research and that business intelligence and being able to formulate that and build it into a technology. Now, I mean, if any of those things that I've mentioned are interesting, that's publicly available information. You can go to rapid7.com and /research and download those reports. Word of warning, a internet scan. I think one of them was sitting at about 32 terabytes. So make sure you're downloading it onto a big machine. But now it's not just saying here's a massive swamp of information. It's actually having the technology and building the technology that makes that research pertinent for your organization. So, for example, when you're looking at a vulnerability, you're not just looking at a CVE ID and going, okay, let me start searching, what is the actual impact? It's being able to know this CVE ID is present on your system. These are the amount of machines and where it is inside the organization. And this is the actual underlying risk and malware kits and exploits that would be targeting that. So it's that prioritization around that threat intelligence rather than just having data on the threat intelligence.
I think that's really interesting. It's really making sure that it's actionable insights, that it's usable data. Like you say, with the amount of research you guys do, being able to put it into a digestible, usable format is fantastic. And we all know that the actual security vendor landscape and the market itself is extremely vast. And what you actually offer, is it appropriate for everyone? Is it something which you're seeing translates value to all sorts of businesses and all sectors, or do you play very much in a niche market or a certain vertical at all?
I don't like to limit ourselves, and I don't know of any vertical that has shunned us. We definitely are not shunning any organizations or verticals. Security is pretty much everyone's responsibility. It's not just down to the security teams and large organizations. Um, Actually, I had an interesting chat with an organization earlier where they said, well, we're not too worried about security because we're not a very well-known brand. We're not a very outspoken and publicly facing organization. And the fun thing is I had to kind of correct him and say it's not, when people are launching an attack or generating phishing emails and everything, they're not really targeting you. They're targeting anyone that's vulnerable to it. I don't really mind what your organization is, the size of it, or what its actual revenue income is. If you are responding to my phishing email, if you're clicking on a link, if you're open and you've got some vulnerabilities running and your system's responding to it, I'm going to get into that system. I'm saying I in terms of kind of ad-libbing. I'm not doing anything. And so yeah, to kind of answer your question, it's kind of all organizations, where you have got that security concern. Now, the way that you approach security, you might say, well, actually, my key focus is around cloud security. And yes, we can talk about cloud security. It might be that actually I'm completely on premise, and my key concerns are around vulnerability management. And that's one of the neat things is Rapid7 really does do a broad portfolio from vulnerability analysis, application security, cloud security, configuration, management. And that's more on the preventative side. But on the responsive side, you've then also got your detection and response capabilities in our analytics platform powered by our SIM, as well as our security orchestration and automation platform. So, it depends on what it is that you're looking at, what you're trying to achieve. And even if you're saying, actually, I'm just, Rapid7 does a huge amount of threat intelligence. What have you got on that? We've actually recently made an acquisition of Insights, which is fantastic around being able to see what are the upcoming, or is anyone else looking at launching attacks against your organization, and dark web monitoring. So yeah, it's what does the organization look at, rather than, oh, we're going to not talk to you or your specific organization because of its size. And it also means we've got fantastic scalability. We can chat to a small organization that only has a limited number of resources, or the large organizations that are sitting and generating 500 million event logs in a 24-hour window.
No, definitely. I think it's really interesting as well how you're saying about some people's perception of, oh, they're not a big enough brand to be targeted. And obviously brand damage, like reputation damage, is one of the key things that people look for security to kind of protect them from. But unfortunately, it's just normally the big brands which hit the headlines, and there is a hell of a lot of different organizations which suffer from security attacks day in, day out. I know, Rob, you work with a complete range of clients and sizes of clients at Natilik. Are you finding that's a concern for them, or are there any other kind of top of mind challenges?
No, absolutely. And like most partner organizations, we kind of had to sift through the ecosystem, as it were, for vendors who provide these types of services. And you can always argue to a lesser or greater degree that they features and functionality are invariably the same, and they do things better or worse to a lesser or greater degree. What I find more interesting is how they power those functionalities and features. If they don't have a robust security team, researchers, and all that kind of great stuff, then how do you funnel all that information into those features to become tangible at some point? So having that information is really pertinent, and that's where Rapid7 kind of differentiated themselves to the market from our perspective, and that's why we like to work with these guys. But so yeah, to your point, I think every single customer has the same security challenges to a greater or lesser degree. I mean, you could argue, as Graham said, that some enterprise customers in the public eye will be targeted more, but every customer I've spoken to about security has noticed an attempt at some point, be it malware triggered over email web or even, targeted DDoS attacks. So, I mean, at Natilik, we have some customers, just a few hundred users, but these guys are investment bankers that deal with large sums of money. So, in my opinion, the size of the company doesn't really matter, or it shouldn't be a consideration when you're trying to adopt these kind of security services we are discussing today. From what I've seen, the major factor where we discuss tools like SIEMs, vulnerability management, is essentially the size of the SecOps teams inside those organizations. If these guys got small teams, then, they can look at potentially outsourcing the security operations center approach to manage it for them. But customers with, those available resources might be able to take on the management of the technology themselves in-house. So, I mean, this is why we really, really like Rapid7's security portfolio, because they've got a range of products that suits all customer sizes, essentially regardless of the industry vertical.
Brilliant. And the second point we were putting to discuss today was, one thing we always get asked is how to differentiate between sometimes like the latest security buzzwords. And I sit in marketing, I sit in product marketing, so I can definitely hold my hand up to say that, there are a lot of buzzwords out there, a lot of acronyms, a lot of new approaches and things. And quite a lot are positioned as point in time security approaches. And understanding the difference between what is just repackaged up and a little bit jazzy to actually what is true innovation and should be really well considered when building out a stronger security posture or looking at to incorporate into your security strategy moving forward. I'm sure you guys probably see and hear a hell of a lot in your world, so it'd be great to get your take on it.
Yeah. I suppose I could talk quickly about that one for Graham to be the really intelligent guy here. I think things like zero trust and SASE are great examples of the latest buzzwords, right? But from my perspective, these are old concepts that be completely just repackaged. However, the underlying methods to exploit or, a network or an endpoint generally stays the same. What's changing from my point of view is where that information is held, who has access to it, and from what device. So our challenge is to capture, that kind of that violation of those policies and be alerted in a timely manner to make decisions quickly. And the only way to do that really, realistically, is to pull data from multiple integrated security sources into a single source of truth. But then you could argue that alone brings its own challenges. And that's where I feel like things like automation really help. And I think we'll touch on that topic a bit later. But to your other point, evaluated risk, as far as I'm concerned, shouldn't be a point in time approach. It should be a continuing assessment of the infrastructure approach. So some customers have quarterly or biannual pen tests a year to try and kind of capture that information or the weak points in the network and then remediate. But generally speaking, from the last time I looked at it, there are around 20,000 CVES announcements a year. And that's only growing as that organization takes on more researchers. So, it's almost making it impossible to manually keep on top of the patching process alone, let alone the 2 to 5% of vulnerabilities that customers actually need to pay specific attention to and remediate, because these are the exploits that have been weaponized and available to be purchased on the dark web. So for what I'm trying to bring across is that evaluated security business risk, in my view, should be a continuous ongoing assessment and not to be ignored for 3 to 6 months again. So this is where Rapid really help, right? So they've got their own prioritization algorithms that help reduce risk faster and could also be tailored in the areas each customer deems a higher risk for their business. A CTO laptop should potentially be looked at quicker than, Joe Blogs in accounting, for example, or whatever that company thinks is really important to them. Let's highlight those risks first. And that's kind of what I'm seeing. And I'm sure Graham will go on to kind of go a bit more in depth than I have.
Yeah, I was just flashing back to a recent, I think it was at the DTX Expo, and you kind of just, recap on some of the chats and the questions that were asked of our team on stand. And some of the big words, as you say, Haley, it's those buzzwords that people are leaning on. XDR is the big one. Previously, if anyone remembers way back, it was SIEM, and everyone's like, okay, great, I have to have logs everywhere and have to know how to answer them. And you kind of had a split going, well, actually, if you haven't got a SIEM, you need an MDR, Managed Detection and Response, which is, well, send the logs to someone who knows how to ask the pertinent questions and get knowledge out of that, what is, just a lake of data from my organization. And look, Rapid7's no novice to this. We brought out IDR, our incident detection and response, and XDR is the latest one. It's extended detection and response, I think. I don't know. It depends on really who you ask from an organization perspective. Where, yes, there are a lot of buzzwords. I think the neat thing about those buzzwords is it is on one hand, a marketing spin of, we've got this technology and we're adding these new features. We're evolving this technology, and therefore we don't just want to keep it under the same banner because we want to kind of get recognition for that evolution. And therein lies the kind of neat part about it, is it's the actual evolution of technology. To give you a case in point, our Rapid7 IDR solution started off as an analytics platform. And I can't even remember what the original name was. It's before my time at Rapid7. But it was built to be plugged on top of SIEM platforms. And we've evolved that to going, actually, let's bring in our own SIEM platform. Let's bring on our own EDR capabilities. Let's bring in our own network traffic analysis and network sensors, so that that analytics that started off as just an analytics platform has now dramatically evolved from just detections to, it's still doing the detections, but it's doing the detections on the logs, the endpoint themselves, and the network, but it's also being able to see that all those three views simultaneously. So yeah, it is a way of organizations to evolve the technology, which is fantastic. We don't just want to be kind of hidden security with the same well-known tools expecting different results. We're trying to make things easier. We're trying to listen to what is the customer wanting and evolve the technology in that way. The other big buzzword that is going around a lot is automation. Everyone goes and says, okay, great. How much can I automate? I've got limited times, limited resources, limited staff. I mean, COVID was really a massive hit for staff. And I need to do a lot more with a lot less. Is your platform, are your technologies, can I integrate into the API? How granular is the API? By clicking a button, can I activate a lot more than I've just wanted to do? And that's kind of drawn on the security orchestration and automation response, that SOAR kind of platform, where guys are going, actually, I need to be able to, if something happens inside my environment, be able to click a button or send a Slack notification that works through that kind of initiates a workflow. And I think that's one of the big buzzwords that was around at the event, is guys going, what can we do around automation? I don't know, Robert, have you seen a lot of requests for automation on your side?
I wouldn't say I've seen requests, but what I'm doing is driving that conversation to our customers. So I'm talking more and more around how to make their lives simpler, and at the same time, save effort on repeatable tasks. That's a quantifiable metric they could take back to the powers that be and say, look, we're spending all our time investigating the same thing over and over, and that's really inefficient. We've heard of these tools that we can, get that information from loads of different sources, format that information to a kind of a simple and easy to consume way, so they can make decisions quicker. And as we know, like, the sooner the threat is off the network or device, right, the better, right? Or we start talking about automating patching activities if they're really brave. But what I feel like it is that it doesn't really have to stop there, right? I think automation can be used for everything. So you could do it for, let's say, checking running services on a device. So I had a conversation with a customer recently and say, look, stuff like endpoint security products, like your firewall on your end devices, is a really, really important thing. So why don't we use an automated workflow to say, every hour check to see if the local firewall is running on corporate managed endpoints. It might be okay for engineers to disable the local firewalls whilst they're working on solutions, but someone in a finance department, for example, should never have this turned off. Let's make sure we're alerting on those actions rather than having someone logging on to each device and trying to find out. That's not scalable. Or another good example is everyone's got a really terrible levers process. No matter what we think, it's terrible. And it's terrible because it's a time process, and it's saved up to the end of the month, potentially. It's saved up to the end of the week or the end of the quarter. And one of the best ways to commit espionage is essentially to use old credentials that haven't been cleaned yet due to these kind of operational inefficiencies in the lever process. So the technology can solve these types of issues and more. These types of things are just the tip of the iceberg. And I'm getting really excited about the ways we can use information smarter. We can also say things like, at a certain point in the investigation, if it's 9 to 5, as you say, send that Slack message to the administrator to then make a human decision. But if it happens at 3 o'clock in the morning, why don't we just automate to say, kick that device off the network, revoke credentials, then see what happens in the morning? Because what we don't want to do is to have it's not a false positive and someone's got hours on your network to do something nefarious. So yeah, I'm having more and more of those conversations, to your point, and I think more and more customers are getting a lot more excited about it, because as you say, it's impossible to have big teams looking at this stuff all the time, and the only way to combat that information overload is to automate as much as you can to keep investigations quick, so you can actually then start making really smart decisions quicker.
Yeah,
I do know as well. So within Natilik, obviously we utilize Rapid7 internally, and we actually have created a bot which has a couple of situations. Our CTO was finding that there were a lot of alerts coming up, so they created a bot, an automated bot, that if a user was logging on from an unusual location, it would flag, and it would also flag directly into like the Natilik team members' WebEx team space to kind of ask, authenticating, is this you? Just double checking. And they can kind of say, yeah, it's me, like I'm on holiday or I'm working from somewhere else. And this actually became really useful in the past, like 18 months, where people were working at different locations or traveling back home to work. So it actually alleviated a hell of a lot of additional, like you say, kind of going through those gates and barriers to say, yeah, no, this is actually a threat, this is not a threat. And that bot is something which we've worked with Rapid7 on creating there for our customers to consume as well.
Yeah, I think that's the neat thing, is whenever I'm introducing teams or organizations to security orchestration, you're welcome to Google, Rapid7 SOAR playbook, and see some of the playbooks that that were those common playbooks that teams are looking at adopting with inside the organization. And it can be around reducing time to response. It can be around automating mundane tasks. If you had to take, well, how many times do I have to do a phishing investigation? Well, if I could automate that, I can really reduce the time on that one. And even just provisioning or deprovisioning of teams, of users inside the organization. And I think that's the neat thing, is you can do all of that. And as you guys have been discussing, it's like Lego or Meccano, depending on your preference. You start off with this blueprint of something that somebody recommends, or that you can import this workflow and go, oh, this is great. This is how I can handle phishing alerts. And you run it maybe for a week or two until somebody comes up and goes, actually, what would be even nicer? What happens if, instead of just trying to do this, if I said it was spam, it reached into Office 365 and deleted that across everything else, but then also sent me a report on what other users were receiving that. And so we get these ideas coming from customers, and we've got a great discussion board whereby people are able to take our playbooks and evolve them into something that actually resonates with what they're trying to achieve. And I've got some really incredible workflows where customers have made those changes, and they're actually then publishing them back into the community saying, well, Rapid7 did a nice approach in this one. I've done it this way, and this really resonates with what I'm trying to achieve. And so you kind of get that, that kind of meme going on where someone will take an idea and go, that's cool, I'm going to evolve it and make it better. And it's better for you. So you're not limited. It really does give you that flexibility of building out something that is pertinent to your organization. So some really cool stuff being bought. Definitely an interesting technology to follow.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and I just want to quickly point out this isn't obviously we're a big Cisco house. We deal with Cisco a lot, but it's not a vendor thing. It's vendor agnostic. As long as there's an enhanced API into whatever the security technology they have, you can build it, right? As you say, it's a process you could build upon, and if you've got that kind of webhook API kind of infrastructure with other security services, then absolutely let's see how we can bring that into the playbooks, workflows, and enhance the telemetry data to make even better decisions, right? That's what it's all about, is trying to gather as much information, pertinent data, and so your decision is more accurate all the time, and then reducing the amount of times you have to do the same processes. So yeah, as I say, we really love talking to customers about this particular one.
Yeah, it's not, yeah, and please, it's not limited to Rapid7. There's, it's Rapid7's seen this, and now let me go and put a block on the firewall and run this against my endpoint. I've actually got a customer that we did a chat on quite recently who reports he's running a full 24/7 SOC with 3 analysts. And I know that there was a Forrester report earlier on that said, you need at least 8 analysts to run a fully operational 24/7 SOC. And I said, well, how are you able to achieve this? And he said, well, it just really comes down to automation, being able to take those mundane tasks and be able to respond in a quick time. And that's how he's able to kind of get that coverage. And it says it's being more efficient with what you have. I can't afford 8 people. So let me go in, and where I've got these workflows and I know these interactions to take, let me go and build that. And that's an awesome kind of win solution. As I say, he's actually one of the ones that is doing a good amount of feeds into the community and sharing a lot of the workflows there.
I love hearing about actually technology advancements and everything being driven by the community, because it gives just a greater insight and an application knowledge to what the next evolution of the technology will be. And talk about that, Graham, whilst we got you on that chat, it'll be great to hear if you could share with us a couple of little insights or anything cool or anything upcoming that's happening in Rapid7 at the moment.
I should probably. I'm trying to okay, what can I say? What can't I say? Because as an engineer, I get to hear a lot of the cool stuff that we're working with. So I'm going to give you hopefully a watered down version, and hopefully I don't get a phone call from our CTO or anything else going, you shouldn't have said that. Okay, so I think that's one of the cool things about Rapid7 as an organization. One, I'm really happy to be part of the team there, or Moose, as we kind of refer to ourselves internally. It's a place where we're able to get our hands onto a huge amount of technology, but it's not, it's same like our sonar where we're scanning out the internet on a regular basis. Yes, we run and manage the Metasploit framework, but we're aware that there's that open framework that we're still having part of other OSs like your Kali and other systems. And I think that's one of the cool things is, we recently acquired a company called Velociraptor, which is awesome name for a company, and that they basically did forensic investigation software. And we acquired them, and they were an open source kind of community software. They did have a licensed portion on it. And we've kept that exactly as is, because whilst we're looking at aligning and integrating their technology into our stuff, we still fully appreciate that there is a community out there that is utilizing this. On the vulnerability management side, yes, we're building the technology to drive the prioritization and that contextual view to our customers, but we also have a feed into attackerkb.com. So you can actually pop inside attackerkb.com and say, look, I want to print Nightmare, tell me more information about it. I want to get more understanding as to what's actually happening on this vulnerability. Pop in the CVE ID. And it gives you a community feedback on it, but it also includes a Rapid7 analysis on those vulnerabilities. One of the, I think that's the cool thing about our organization is, yes, as I said, it's doing the research, making sure that you've got that data, um, and keeping those communities alive, because we rely on those communities, and as much as those communities help us build a better solution and help kind of close that security gap, it's still actually making sure that those communities are kept up to date and are continue to evolve and enhance. Um, so yes, we've got some awesome stuff on that. We've actually recently made an acquisition. This is not a free one, but as I said, Insights, which is around dark web monitoring, where you're able to put in your VIP and executive details and create assets based off projects, domains, IP tables, and go in and assess, where are we seeing any kind of credentials or any potential data leaks? Are we seeing any upcoming attacks or kind of noise of targeting attacks? Are we seeing credentials leaked onto public forums? And it's the ability of spotting those phishing, those phished or domains that could be, used for phishing attacks. And it's bringing that to light. There was a organization that we actually identified, and I don't think I can release their name. I can double check on that afterwards. But what was happening is that there was a slight change on the character, and it was targeting Chinese tourists coming over to the UK itself, where they were buying train tickets, making the payments, and they were actually even receiving an exact duplicate of a train ticket printed on and looked completely authentic. And it was only by actually utilizing insights and identifying actually there's this spoof domain out there in the wild that people are going on to and making these payments and getting these tickets, and they're using the tickets because the tickets look valid. I mean, how many times have you gone onto one of the train lines and you've got those kind of like orangey tickets, and the conductor looks at it and goes, yeah, looks all right, and signs it off, and they'd gone to the whole level of replicating those tickets. And it was only by kind of they when they look back in their records, they said, actually, we can see that we've lost. There's been a definite dip in the Chinese market and our profits from there. So this is obviously the cause of that, and it's being able to kind of resolve those cases and kind of say, look, this is how you're exposed. This is what your profile is on the dark web, and this is what the kind of noise is around there. So some really cool stuff that we're working on. And then also, not to leave it behind, but I know that the cloud security team is not going to be sending me any things or any thank you cards if I kind of keep them amiss. So yes, we also made a acquisition of a organization called Divi Cloud, which is odd name. We've rebranded it to CloudSec, and yeah, it's around how we're tying into not just Azure or AWS, but Azure, AWS, GCP, Alibaba, pretty much your cloud profiles, and going, how can you have a unified policy regardless of the public cloud infrastructure? So yeah, I mean, we continually evolving our technology. So from an engineering perspective, it makes my job difficult because they keep changing features and making new enhancements, which is great. The awesome thing about it is those enhancements are what customers are asking for, and even if you actually go onto the customer portal, you can say, I've got an idea. Can you please include this? And it actually creates an idea ticket on our back-end system, something that engineers are able to look into and address and evolve the technology, if feasible, towards that. So yeah, a lot of growth.
That's quite interesting, actually, because there's a lot of names that are, company purchases. You think, yeah, you're going to need to remarket it, that name. You can't keep that. And then, you buy a Velocity Raptor and you think, please don't change that. That's such an awesome name. But going back to like that Chinese story you talk about, I actually fell foul to something similar in the UK. I went on the Dartford Tunnel, came back. I know you have to kind of pay the toll right the same day. I was extremely lazy. I just went into Google, typed in paid toll tunnel, and I didn't even know I was actually on a third-party website, and paid the money because it looked exactly the same. And the Dartford toll said to me that I need to pay a fine because I didn't pay it in time. And I was like, no, here's my receipt. I've paid it. And they reached out to me and said, no, you paid via a third party, actually. And I was like, oh my God, what an idiot. So it's so easily done when users become exceptionally lazy, not even thinking that even a government website for something like a service like that could be, kind of be duped, essentially. So very, very interesting stuff.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much, both of you, for joining us today. There's a hell of a lot of food for thought there, and we really appreciate giving a little bit of insight and some of the examples that we've spoken through. So yeah, thank you so much.
No, it's been a pleasure.
Thanks very much for having us, Hayley. It's been fantastic.
Thank you. And if you'd like to know any more about Rapid7 and what we've been working with them here at Natilik, please take a look at our website at natilik.com.
Thanks for listening to NatChat, the Natilik Podcast. Please subscribe to the Natilik Podcast on Spotify, Apple Music, or wherever you get your podcasts. And leave us a review while you're there. It really helps us improve and grow the show. Please note that opinions expressed on the Natilik Podcast are those of the hosts or our guests, not the organisations that they represent. You can find more information on Natilik on our website, that's natilik.com. You can also find us on social media. On Twitter, we're at Natilik Group, as well as Facebook and LinkedIn. Our theme music was provided by Dan Shaw, who you can find at Danzer, that's DANZR, on music streaming services. This is Rob Thor, and thanks again for listening.